This is Obelisk. I'm a knight of Dark Age of Camelot. I'm going to go ahead and start the Knights podcast stream while I wait on some other knights to join me, hopefully. So give it a little bit of time and then I'll get into it. Dark Age of Camelot. I'm going to go ahead and start the Knights podcast stream while I wait on some other knights to join. I should probably turn that off. There we go. Okay. Like I said, I'm going to wait a little bit. Hopefully some more people will join me. If not, I'll have a chat with you guys, talk about some things I think could be talked about. Maybe get some interaction from the stream chat. I suppose I'll take a couple runs of my Reaver to provide a little bit of, I guess, background entertainment, so it doesn't get so dull just sitting here. Yeah. I'll load in some bots now on my other computer, and then I'll take some runs, answer some questions, and like I said, hopefully I'll have some other knights in here, so we can have some discussion. Not sure how many viewers we have yet, so I don't want to jump into things just yet, especially since other knights aren't here. But just so people know, and I know this is kind of doesn't really make sense for me to say this, but all the night podcasts, the recordings will be on YouTube. So if anyone ever misses one from here on out, should be able to view them on YouTube. Of course, the issue with that is you can't interact with us, ask us questions, have discussions with us when we do the podcast, but at least you'll be able to see them. Since I don't think we have very many viewers now, if you're hearing this, you're probably watching it on this part, at least on YouTube. Maybe you call us live in the later sections of the podcast. Okay, we do have some people, about 7 people now. That's good. Hopefully some other knights will join me soon. If not, it's just me and you guys, I guess. And just forewarning, I probably won't be able to make this a super long podcast, just because I haven't need to figure out plans for dinner. It's getting kind of late, so hopefully go probably about 30 minutes to maybe an hour. We'll see the amount of interaction we get from you guys, especially if it's just me. I'm going to need live interaction from the chats. Anyway, while we wait for people to join, I'll take a couple runs on the Reaver. Okay, just going from the post count thread that we made recently, from people, suggesting some talking points from us and everything. I guess I'll just kind of, share my opinions. Can't really discuss them as there's no one else here right now. But one of the oh crap. Okay, it's a 3-man. He'll be dead here. Healer sitting back there with the eye. Just gonna try to kill him, but the Warlock's just going to slay me. Alright, anyway, one of the questions was, what are the Knights' take on the current state of New Frontiers? Do you think there are too many ports and in turn causing action to be spread out too much? Or is there a good balance at the moment? Well, I think my answer to that, it's a little complicated. Since right now, there's a big disparity in how much action there is between, the normal Euro prime time, which is normally, if you're going off of Eastern time, it's I guess, 3 to 6 or so, 2 to 6. During that time, there are quite a lot of people on, and so having the action be spread out a little bit isn't necessarily a bad thing because it gets rid of a little bit of the clutter and whatnot. However, once it gets U.S. prime time, there's the population is not as big during the U.S. prime time, so it'd be nicer to have it a little more, I guess, compiled in one area, and especially after U.S. prime time at about maybe 12 o'clock Eastern, midnight Eastern to the early hours of the morning U.S. prime time. Sorry, U.S. time. The action's really it's a lot lower numbers, and so you can really tell the action spread at that point. And yeah, but during the European prime time, it's pretty jam-packed in a lot of places. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, yeah, having the action spread kind of sucks sometimes, but at other times it's nice having it spread out a little bit. It's just all depending on the time of day. I don't really know if there's any way you could actually fix that, since you could argue it's too spread during U.S. time, but not spread enough during Euro time. I don't know if there's any realistic way to fix that issue. And I mean, honestly, there's a bit of an issue, I think, but it's not a massive issue. I think it's a decent enough balance the way New Frontiers currently operates. But let's see. See if I can find some more questions on the from the post count thread. I can't really answer too much about the questions about Daok being on Steam or whatever. Any financial questions about free to play or anything, I can't really give you all anything but my opinion on. But there's an interesting theory, or I guess suggestion, that someone came up with. It would be to make Geharis free to play, and as you may or may not know, Geharis is the PvE server. It's unaffiliated with UAIN. There's no transfers or anything like that, but it's strictly PvE. You go out into New Frontiers and you can take keeps and whatnot for RPs essentially, and yeah, it's just the population is very small compared to UAIN, but the idea was to make it free to play in order to drive sort of some traffic to Daok, get people in the door maybe with that, let them enjoy the PvE, and then in order to play PvP and whatnot, they have to pay for the account. I think that's a pretty interesting idea. Yeah, Carol Beeman's messaging me right now. Fortunately, in IRC, when I get a private message, it dings, so those dings you're hearing are private messages, so sorry about that. But yeah, I think the Geharis free to play thing's an interesting idea that could potentially help and drive some traffic to Daok and maybe increase the population and the subscription base. But I don't know how feasible that is or whatnot. That's more of a developer question, more of an accountant question as well as and just a feasibility question. Can you make a server free to play, just one particular server, and how are the books going to look after you do that? I'm not sure. Anyway, Carol, the community representative for the game, told me that the Steam relation with Dayak is still ongoing. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. So there's not really a lot of updates in regards to that, but it is still in the works. It's still, it's not shelved or anything, so it's still out there. So maybe in the future we can get some updates and some new information. And yes, Chelsea is the best team in the UK. I agree with you. I think Carol will argue that Manchester United might be, but I think today or yesterday's results will prove that Chelsea is a little bit better than Manchester United, at least at the moment. Okay, let me see if I can find some other questions, talking points. One thing asked about MLs and will they ever be readdressed. The thing about MLs is there are a very few, really useful MLs in each line. Like I'm on a Banelord class right now, so I'll just go through. The first 4 are great because those are your interrupts. Of course, Zone of Unmanned doesn't interrupt, but it's a great effect. Bane Spike's pretty good. Demoralization is great. Banelord's a pretty solid line just due to the necessity it has on certain classes like light tanks. I think Banelord, if you were to readdress it, there's not much you should do or could do besides maybe make some of the ones that don't interrupt, like Zone of Mana and Demoralization, maybe make those interrupt. But you look at a Convoker line, for example, you get Speed Warp, Brittle Guard, and ML9's pretty decent. After that, most of the abilities are pretty, I don't want to say useless, but they're not nearly as useful as they could be. You look at Stormlord as well. I've never played a Stormlord class. Well, I have played classes that get access to it, but I've never spec'd my character Stormlord just because it's such an situational line, I suppose. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the spells in there. You can make them useful by making them a little faster cast and stuff. I think could be interesting, but there's a lot of things that could be addressed. Same with Convoker. You get Cure Disease, Cure Nearsight. Let me look at my Friar Cleric, see, just to make sure. There are a couple pretty decent things, but I would be behind an ML revamp, at least to revisit things. Especially you look at Spymaster, and you got Mez Poison, which is great, but honestly, I think Mez Poison should be on maybe a 10-minute reuse timer instead of what it is now. Group stealth, stuff like that. It's not super useful. The Enduring Poison's great because it lets you reapply, poisons without, swapping weapons or anything. It keeps a poison on the weapon, which is really useful, I think. But other than that, you get Poison Spike, which is okay. Pretty nice ability, but that line is lacking, I think. Very few spells in the Spymaster line are up to par, in my opinion, at least. Y'all may disagree, but I think an ML revamp would be appreciated by a lot of people and by me as well. Let me see something else. And if any of you guys have any questions or want me to talk about something, please feel free to let me know in the Twitch chat, and I will share my opinion on it. Another thing from the same person that suggested talk about the ML revamp. He was talking about the Critical Strike line and the fairly recent revamp that happened to it, mainly the called shots and the specific armor piece debuff. It appears not a ton of players are using that. You still get most Shadow Blades going extremely high left axe. Most Nightshades, they go Celtic Duel, and most Infiltrators, I think they mainly use their dual wield styles. But the thing is, Infiltrators are really the only class that realistically, unless you're ranked 9 or 10 or 11, can efficiently, or effectively, I should say, spec high crit strike to get those called shots due to the spec point bonus they get over the Shadow Blades and Nightshades. It's just, I don't think they're good enough to warrant lowering your dual wield or left axe or Celtic Duel, I should say, in order to to get the called shots. And plus, they're a little clunky. Landing 2 styles in a row can be iffy, especially with the defense rates you get. Like a Nightshade attacking my Reaver, for example, is going to have a really hard time landing 2 styles in a row due to my defense. So I have decent block, decent parry. In the stealther game, there's lots of evades going on and stuff. It's just difficult to consistently rely on landing 2 swings in a row. And I've not played an assassin since that change, but I'd imagine the damage since after fighting some assassins I've used called shots, the damage isn't that impressive, at least when I'm getting hit by it. So I think more could be done to crit strike to make it more desirable. You still got PA, preferred artery, and backstab, which are decent openers. Pretty high damage. You could look at possibly looking at altering the damage of that a little bit to make crit strike more desirable. I don't know if you should increase the damage of those by a lot, but I think a damage increase could be fair. And maybe put, instead of stun on backstab, put some sort of stun on perforated artery, because whenever I get PA'd, I hardly ever get creeping. Sorry, I may have said backstab. Creeping death is a follow-up to perforated artery. When I get PA'd on my Reaver, I hardly ever get creeping death due to the fact that I can quickly just engage that person and block the creeping death. I can hit charge. I can just sprint, and if they're not sprinting immediately after they PA me, they may not be in range. There's a lot of ways to counteract a critical or a creeping death, or even just moving around in circles can cause them not to be able to hit me. So PA having some sort of stun or even a snare on it. Right now it has, I believe, a poison, like a dot. Bleed. Even a snare would be great, because that helps you, at least with movement. They can't get away from you so easy with the before you land a creeping death. There are definitely a lot of other things you could do to make creeping or critical strike a more desirable spec line, but I don't think the called shots are that great personally. I think they kind of missed the mark on that one, but right now it is what it is, and we could hopefully look at changing it a little bit. Another suggestion or a comment about the New Frontier size being addressed, which, like I said earlier, during Euro time, it's not an issue because there's so many people on, and some say it may be a little cramped, some say it's just right, but during Euros time, I do agree that the size of the New Frontiers is a little bit too big. Like I said, could be difficult to properly change that when considering your two different play times during the day and how different the action is during those times. Let's see. Find some more suggestions possibly to talk about. Okay, suggestion just to talk about Maulers, I guess. And I'm a massive fan of Maulers, at least in group and small mans and whatnot. I've played one until rank 9 on HIB, and then I have a nearly rank 7 on mid. So I have a decent amount of experience, not a great amount, but I think I'm pretty well versed in Maulers. But Maulers are interesting right now because in the past, I don't think people really saw the value in Maulers, and there's been some changes over the years to make them more desirable in groups, but right now they do a lot of damage with, if you go 50 fist wraps, you get a 2-part 150 delve DD chain, and if you go high magnetism, you get a 20% ABS, 20% weapon skill buff, which also increases your proc damage by 20% and just makes you hit all around harder. So they're quite a high damage class. I look at them and I see them kind of close in damage to Savage. Of course, as I said earlier, landing 2 styles in a row in today's game can be difficult, especially in groups with PBT and debuffs and whatnot. But I think they're a pretty high DPS class. They have, if you go high mag, I think that's probably the best group spec is to go around 45 mag and then 50 fist wraps. But you get a 28% damage absorb, which also gives them Mauler power. You can cast that on any member in your group. Lasts 30 seconds, like a 15-second reuse timer. If a healer's taking a lot of damage, you cast it on him, he's instantly taking 28% less damage. It's a super cool ability. Cast it on yourself, it's great. and and then they have their roots, which there's one root that's unbreakable. Neither root gives immunity. Just an all-around cool class for groups. Yeah, like Kuji saying, Maulers have become essentially useful. Um, yeah, CC has taken such a big turn. You're right, yeah. I mean, the roots that Maulers give are great because you can essentially, with a Mauler, if you're, say I'm on mid and I'm finding an Alp group and we're pulling the Alp group, on the Mauler I can run in, use one of my instant roots on the Thurg. He's rooted out or he purges it. The root doesn't give immunity, so I can go back in and use my second root, which is an unbreakable, or you can use that one first, doesn't really matter. Then that root doesn't give immunity. Then once he comes out of that root, like I said, no immunity, then your shaman or whatever can root him out as well. So you can essentially root him out 3 times. You can root him out 4 times if you use Ichor to clear the immunity after the normal root. So it's a really cool combination or teamwork plays you can do with that. And like Kuji says, they're essentially unCCable. Stoicism, especially with the Mez dampening, if you go Aura as your subspec, it's like a 10 or 15% Mez reduction. With Det 9 Stoicism, hard to CC, hard to kill. Yeah, and just the overall utility, as Kuji's saying in Twitch chat, they're a great class. Now, I think a lot of complaints come about Maulers. I don't think anyone says they're overpowered or anything in groups. At least I wouldn't think they would be. But in a 1v1 sense, their Power Strike and Aura abilities combined kind of make them super defensive and super sustainable with their heal procs and your 40% parry, and I think you get like 30% evade, and you get a fumble and a dehaste and an end drain. They get tons of stuff to make them like a powerhouse solo in a 1v1 situation. But the game is super hard, in my opinion, to balance around 1v1 when keeping in mind group balance. It's hard to balance perfectly every playstyle, so there's got to be some compromise in certain spots to make some classes better than others. You're never gonna get a perfectly balanced game, but let's see. But it's like I said, you're never gonna get a perfectly balanced game, but you can come close. I think there are some changes that can be made to Maulers, especially in the Power Strike and Aura line, to make them more balanced and not over the top without affecting them in groups. You can maybe try to move around some of the or increase the reuse timer on like the fumbles and the attack speed debuffs. Maybe lessen the value of the heal offensive proc. I think it's like 25% or 20% proc rate. And yeah, you could probably make some changes to lessen their effectiveness solo, but I wouldn't touch the mag line because I don't think a lot of the solar maulers really spec a high mag at all, because most of them go, I think, 34 fist wraps, 41 power strikes, and then the rest, it might be 41, or I can't remember. I've never played that spec on mine. But you can make some changes to maulers to make them less effective solo, while not really decreasing their effectiveness in groups, which I think would be a good thing. And like I said, if there's anything you guys want me to discuss or any discussion you would like to make or any points or suggestions, please feel free to let me know in the Twitch chat, and I'll be glad to talk to you. Let's see. As far as the game's, one question or one, I guess, suggestion is to talk about the game's direction in the future. And with the newsletter, it's going to be coming out pretty regularly, so that's good. There's going to be a lot more communication from Broadsword, I think, with that, which I think is nice. I think right now a lot of people want, communication from Broadsword, and this will kind of keep people in the loop about, what they're planning to do, what they're planning to, approach in the future. Right now, we got the UI change, which is going to be interesting. We got pathing change. It's just, some things for the future. Now, as far as big picture plans, I'm not really sure, and I don't know if I'm, at will to tell you guys a lot of things, but I really don't know too much right now, the Nightstaunt, about, like any plans for advertising, or like I said, the Steam thing, which I mentioned earlier, which is still in the works but behind the scenes. So I guess that's something the developers will probably address in the newsletters um, over the next months or so. I don't know the time frame of announcing anything, but just keep an eye out on the newsletters, and that'll be a nice way to find out new things about the game. Um, Carol wanted me to talk about the name change, possibility of essentially buying name changes, and that's been talked about in the past. It's always been the developers always kind of said maybe, not right now. It's a lot of resources, which it is. You have to pretty much dedicate, I guess, someone to changing the names and setting it all up. But that's, from what I understand, that is something they're looking into. It may not happen in the next month, next 2 months, the next year, but it is something that's possible, and it could happen. It'll probably be for a monetary charge. Sorry, I'd like maybe around 15 to 20 to $10, somewhere like that. A name change could be a good place, I think. Okay, coming from a developer, their reasonings or their words are they'd love to offer that service and similar features, possibly maybe a race respec that was talked about. It'll be kind of similar to the name change, I'd imagine. They said the in-game setup part is actually kind of easy, but they just have to get the account center set up, and then they'll start working towards kind of tying the name change service into the account-related properties, so you can make purchases through that. But right now, there's no concrete or semi-concrete time frame for when that's going to be able to happen. So just have to sit tight and be patient for it, and hopefully it will come, and that'd be interesting because I have some names I would like to change. For starters, my reader's name, Opting. Not a massive fan. Don't know when I made it and don't know why I made it this, but it'd be nice to maybe change this. And the new account center, that part at least should be coming out maybe at the end of May. But the name change portion service probably won't be incorporated with that at that time frame, but that'll be in the future, hopefully. And the same with race respecs. Over the years, a lot of people have made a lot of questionable race choices. There's certainly some I'd like to change, but maybe that could be offered as well to the services. Opting is awesome. It's okay. um, let's see. I talked about this last time, and it's something that a lot of people talk about. 1 second, guys. Okay. Anyway, as I was saying, talking about relics, it's been a discussion for years, and recently, I think Mids might have had 6 relics at one point, 2 weeks ago or so. Changing maybe the value of relics could be an interesting idea, just because once one realm gets, even Albion right now has 4, and that's a straight 10% increase to damage for melee or power, whichever relics you have. And if you get all 6 or all 3 and say strength, that's a 20% damage increase. It's really a lot of damage. You're essentially 20% more effective, or 10% if you only have 2 relics. I'd like to see the values lowered personally, or the bonuses changed. I think maybe 5% per relic could be okay, because 10% is a lot, but it's not going to absolutely break the game. But 20% I think is way too much for having 3 relics. Maybe make each relic worth 5%. Or you could tie in a bonus, instead of having strength relics, have an RP relic, essentially, where it gives the realm holding it an RP bonus across the board. For say the strength relic and for the power, you could maybe look at something else, but One second. Sorry, guys. All right. Yeah, maybe change the bonuses to something that's not so, you know, performance based. I guess, not a damage increase. Yeah, Kuji says people would select a race at lower realm rank and then change it to higher realm rank. Yeah, but I mean, that's not necessarily. I mean, it gives them an advantage, I guess. But I mean, they would have to pay at that point and be willing to invest a little bit of money to change it. And it's not too big of a deal, I don't think. Um, Back in the day, like years and years ago, respecs were so hard to get. I'm talking like probably before SI and maybe just a little after SI. Respecs were so hard to get that once you spec'd a character, if you messed up, you were kind of stuck with it for a while. And I think the only way to get respecs at that time was like dragon raids. I remember I tried to kill the dragon a bunch, and I was a little noob. Probably wasn't even 50 trying to kill it, and with a big raid, and we'd have trouble and stuff, and just the respec stones are super hard to get. But yeah, it's now that respec stones are a lot easier to get. It's nice, and you can kind of. It's not the same thing as race respects, but something you like. Skill respecing was not impossible. It was really hard to do back then. Kind of like race respects are obviously impossible to do now, and giving the people the option to do it would be good, and bring some revenue. I mean, not bring a ton of revenue to the company, but bring some, and it forced people not to just do it willy nilly, like whenever they felt like it, but it make them make it a monetary investment. So I don't think that would be a terrible plan. Okay, guys, I think we're going to do a time card giveaway. Actually, Carol Bevan has told me that we can do that, and nice enough to, I guess, provide the time card for everyone. But I suppose right now I'll just take everyone that's signed up and in chat. We got about 16 people. And I'll just run them through a random picker website. I suppose would be the easiest way. And actually, I'm gonna wait a second, just so Beeman made an announcement a little bit. So I'll give people a little bit of time to join the stream before I, pick whoever gets the time card. I'll do it randomly, so there'll be no bias. And while we wait for that, if anyone has any, talking points or anything they'd like me to discuss, or any points they'd like to make, any questions, maybe I can help you. If you have any questions maybe about Reavers or Maulers or Paladins or anything, let me know. Be more than happy to answer anything I can. Or anything just about the game, or what I think, or what I like right now. I've been playing Reaver recently, solo, mostly, for about a month or two, and had a good time with it. It's kind of what I've been doing. Stopped grouping as much recently just due to lack of time at night. Most people I play with play after dinner time, and I've been doing real life stuff at that point, so I haven't been grouping as much. But yeah. Okay. Well, I'll give it a couple more minutes, and then I'll announce the time card. And like I said, if you have any questions, comments, anything, let me know in the Twitch chat. Another thing that someone, Nazo, actually, said he'd like to hear discussed would be more incentive for 8v8 and to keep Zergs off of Agramon, titles, call items, graphics, etc. Yeah, I don't know how a good way. I hadn't really thought about it to increase the incentive for people to run 8 and maybe look for other 8-man groups to fight. Not necessarily sit in IRC all day and 8v8 like that, but to run 8 groups alone, separate from Zerg, and just roaming with their 8. I don't know how you could incentivize that. Questions? Let me know. If you're watching this on YouTube a couple days later, just post on post count if you have an account, and let me know. Maybe give us some suggestions and we can look into that. He also says, just to feel off the top of my head, class revamps to make them more desirable, and he mentions melee wardens, animus, warlocks, maulers, necros, and staff friars. Well, I already mentioned maulers and kind of walked through them a little bit earlier. I think they're pretty good right now in a grouping sense, especially if you know how to use them. A lot of people, I think, right now probably don't fully understand what spec to go and how to properly play them. But as far as necros need a lot of work. I think that's going to require a pretty big overhaul to get them to where they need to be. But Animus is kind of, I mean, they're a decently spike DPS oriented class. They just don't really fit with the normal hip groups. Right now you have the Chanter debuffing for the Eld and the Minilis, and you have so much utility with that, and you have 2 spec nukes as well as Demez in the back, a Mez in the back from the Minilis, a Pet from the Minilis, a Nearsight from the Minilis. It's not great, but it's a 2000 range. Nearsight's a good rupt. And then you have the Eld with all their stat debuffs and their disease, snare nuke, nukes, red Nearsight, and then the Chanter with a great Pet, debuffs for the Eld and the Mints. It's just hard to fit in like the body / energy train. You just don't have as much utility. Melee wardens, in the past they were great and stuff. They fit in like a 5 tanker pretty well, I think. But yeah, I don't really know what you would do to make melee wardens more groupable. Maybe I don't think the answer to melee wardens is damage. In the past, people have suggested 2-hand. I don't think that'd be a terrible idea, but I don't think that's going to suddenly fix melee wardens. Right now, the standard Rejuve Warden's a pretty good class, and they can still peel, stun, depending on the spec, snare. They're pretty versatile back there. Staff Friars, kind of the same way as Wardens. I don't really know how you're gonna make them super desirable in groups when you can go full Rejuve, run 1 less cleric, and then have huge heals. So and Shaman revamp, yeah, as Kuj says. People a lot of times view buffs as a necessity, and they are in rebuffs and fights. But nowadays with charges and supremacy pots and stuff, shamans are almost right now they're kind of almost used just for their buffs. They're okay at interrupting. They're not super great. I'd rather have another Valk or a Pack Healer or something interrupting than a shaman only. But yeah, they could use a little help. If any of you guys have suggestions or anything, let me hear them. I'd love it. Have a question from chat. Should minstrels keep stealth as they make alp stealth groups overpowered? I agree with you there. You look at mid stealth groups, which I think are probably second in line, just due to hunter pets, because when you look at stealth group versus stealth group, or even stealth group versus a semi-normal group, the hunter pets are great for interrupts and damage and utility, the disease, snare, and everything. But minstrels are just so powerful because you have long duration CC. The minstrel mez isn't like a scald mez where it lasts like 20 something seconds and it's on a 30-second reuse timer. It's like in practice it lasts like 40 seconds or so with duration against non-det stoic tanks. The insta stun, the AM for the heal. It's just the speed 6, even if you're chasing after someone. They just kind of tip the scale into Alb, especially with scouts, sitting there back there with them. Just kind of make Alb stealth really powerful. I think the easiest fix would probably be to remove stealth from minstrels, but that is kind of that is what a lot of people play them as, is stealth minstrels right now. So that would be difficult to just suddenly remove stealth from them and say, okay, have fun, because that's how the playstyle is now. It's yeah, I wouldn't. Got a little following of a group of players, but Yeah, I think minstrels could do without stealth, but it may be difficult removing it just due to the fact that they've had it for forever. And oh, he's giving me some respect stones. Maybe he heard my, me talking about in the past respect stones being super hard to get. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyway, yeah. Um, to the 22 other viewers think these suggestions. I think they're great, Joel. I think they're amazing. And Ugo, yes, not a collar shirt tonight. Been wearing a t-shirt all day, so I figured I'd stay with it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do the time card giveaway with the 22 people we have in chat now. If you're registered on Twitch, I believe you show up in my viewer list. I'm just going to copy paste that essentially into a random picker thing website. Let me Google one real fast. I did this before for the 8v8 draft. I gave someone a time card. So I'm going to see if I can find a good site to pick someone. Okay, here's a randomizer, the randomized list website. I think I'm going to just copy paste the names into that website, hit randomize, and whoever's on the top of the list, I will give the time card to. Or Beeben will give the time card to. Carol K will. Actually, let me good copy. Sorry. And we are about to randomize. So whoever gets the top of the pick, I guess, gets the time card. Randomize. So it'd be aliens, how do you pronounce it, would win the time card. So I'm sure Carol will probably be easiest for her to get up with you through post count or through Twitch. I'd imagine it should be easiest through post count since you have a count there. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for participating in the time card random. And for now, I'm going to turn off. Just put it back on Dayoc. Easier for me. See if you guys have any more questions, suggestions, anything like that I can look at. So grats, aliens. Let's see. Anyway, if any of you guys have suggestions, anything you want me to talk about, let me know real fast. If not, I'll probably take off soon, just so I can eat and stuff. Haven't eaten dinner yet tonight. It's getting a little late on a Sunday. I'll go through the post count thread again and see if I missed anything. I'm sure I did. And as something I want to talk about, we're kind of changing up the night program a little bit, and we are adding more nights. As in the newsletter, there'll be a application to be a night, I guess, on the Herald at some point. Hopefully that'll be the end of this month and the next month maybe. So watch out for that. If you have any interest in being a knight, I believe we will need more. So, but an application in once the application is live, and we'd love to, or I guess Carol and the developers would love to, have you aboard if they find you suitable. So, see if I have any more questions. What's your opinion on the bodyguard mechanic? Well, I don't mind it. I think in groups it definitely has its place. I don't think it's overpowered in groups by any means. Where it really comes to, I guess where it's questionable is in, small man, play where I'm on a Reaver, or say I'm on an Armsman, I'm fighting a warrior and a healer. I'm a warrior Zerker, or warrior fighting a Armsman and a cleric, for say, sorry. I'm not going to be able to ever hit the cleric, and the cleric just sits there and heals the Armsman all day. Good thing is, now with CL diseases and stuff like that, you can sit back and interrupt with one of the tanks. One of the things I don't like about Bodyguard is how kind of clunky it is. Um, Especially right now, if you have two bodyguard classes in groups, and there's you cross bodyguard and stuff, and then the bodyguard becomes bugged for one person. Even if no one's bodyguarding someone, you can't put bodyguard on because it says they're already being bodyguarded, and then you have to fix a bug by essentially each bodyguards each other. It's a really clunky bug right there, and I don't really like that. I also don't like how inconsistent it is. The kicking in mechanic, I should say, or I guess you would call it a bodyguard. Sometimes it takes forever to kick in, and you die because you stop for bodyguard, and then they're sitting on top of you. You're both standing still for a couple seconds, and the tanks are still able to hit you. Sometimes it instantly kicks in, and sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 seconds. So I don't like that part of bodyguard. It's really clunky. Um, yeah, as Cooch says, I think that'd be a good idea. Just allow kind of probably will help alleviate the first bug I talked about. Let bodyguards coexist, essentially overlap. So if I'm a paladin and I have an armsman group and I have bodyguard on the cleric, and I'm off killing a healer, the armsman can run over and put bodyguard on the cleric. We both have bodyguard on him, but whoever's closer is the one that bodyguards them. I think that's probably a good suggestion. That I don't know if it's possible coding wise. I'd imagine with enough time it would be, but that would be a good thing for bodyguard. Where are my feelings on bodyguard stopping casting? Like a healer can't cast if he's being bodyguarded. Um, yeah, that like I said, in the solo, duo, trio, playstyle, small man playstyle, bodyguard's a little strong maybe, and that would help. This definitely help in that playstyle. Um, but like I said earlier, I think bodyguard's pretty much okay, other than having some bugs and whatnot in group. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, balancing something for one play style that throws it off for the other play style is, it's a tricky situation because you gotta look at the game as a whole and what's the best change as a whole, not just for particular play style. If you change something that makes something a little bit easier for a particular play style and you completely throws off another, the mechanic in another play style, is that a good change or not? And with that change, it might be. I'm not sure. Personally, like in groups, I don't mind people being able to cast through while they're being bodyguarded. I think it's a good mechanic, but it's something that would help one play style while hindering another play style. While making it'd be a positive change for Swivel and Small Man, but a negative change, in my opinion, for group. So you gotta look at it like that. Let's see. Yeah, you can make spells cast while being bodyguard costs 50% more power. That's a good idea. I think that'd be a decent compromise. Or make them slightly less effective, like when you're mocked. If you have Mach 3, you have 50% effectiveness on your spells. Maybe make Bodyguard knock it down to 70% effectiveness or something. That'd be a decent compromise. As an active aviator over the years, do you prefer the guard bot mechanic used on Classic or the bodyguard mechanic used on TOA? Well, as Kuji said, guard is still important. When I'm on a tank and bodyguard and someone, I'll throw guard on them as well. Especially, like I said, sometimes it takes a while to kick in. If you're guarding them, there's a chance you absorb the hit through guard. I also put intercept on people that I'm bodyguarding just so I take the hit while bodyguard is kicking in. But as far as that being the only form of protection, I like bodyguard. I've always played TOA. I've played Classic very frequently. So there's always, I was always used to bodyguard once TOA came out, and I'm a big fan of it in groups and stuff in 8v8. I don't mind it. I think it's pretty balanced. I don't think it's overpowered. It you know it's part of the. I think it's part of the game. It's a good part of the game. Yeah. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, you can make it to where the person who has bodyguard gets a debuff on them. That's yeah. Having a negative effect associated with bodyguard probably isn't the worst idea. I think that'd probably be decent. Yeah, I think the person bodyguarding, yeah, I think what Cabotine or Tine Morton says is probably a good idea, having them take more damage or lose their defensive capabilities. Thoughts on using programs to equip shields? That's more of a TOS issue, and you look at games, more modern games, and they may have something like that implemented. A lot of people's keyboards and mice have little programs like that implemented, but that's a TOS issue, I think. And I think that'd be best you know, for me not to comment on because I may not represent Broadsword and what they want to it's their team, their TOS, and I think it's something they should probably address instead of me. Let's see. Yeah, like Cooch says, the power thing probably won't make as much a difference due to the amount of power regen there is in the game, but maybe an effectiveness or debuff of some sort could be interesting. Cast speed, yeah, that's cast speed increase or decrease, I should say. Could be interesting. A good debuff for the casting bodyguard. Yeah, like Cooch says, bodyguard requires coordination, which is I love things that require teamwork and proper coordination. Um, I'm a big fan of it. Like I've said, requires people to think and work together. Let's see. I remember there's something I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember. I should have written it down. I believe I talked about Mez poisons, and I can't remember the reuse timer on Mez poison right now. I can't remember if it's 20 minutes or like 30 minutes. But Mez poison, the reuse timer on that being brought down. Yeah, recast 30 minutes according to the website I'm looking at. 30 minutes for Mez poison is crazy, I think. When you look at abilities like Zephyrs, which is a 10-minute reuse timer, it's an ML. Phase shift 15 minutes, but I think Zephyrs, potentially, in some situations, a lot more powerful than phase. But you look at Mez poison, it's great and all, but should it really be a 30-minute reuse timer? 30 minutes. That's a ton. That's way more than anything else. I think that being brought down to 15 and even 10 would be a good change for assassins. And right now, I think assassins are, they're definitely not strong. I wouldn't say. They could use some help. I think, especially you look at Shadowblades who have a completely inferior rank 5 to Infill and Nightshades, and arguably an inferior dual wield mechanic because you have to spec high left axe to get your damage from that. The good part about that is they dual wield every hit, but I don't know. Like I said, I think assassins could use a little help, and maybe changing Mez poison reach timer would be a good start, at least. Then maybe looking at critical strike. Like I mentioned earlier, called shots not the best, especially since infiltrators are the only ones that can effectively use them efficiently, I guess, or yeah, effectively, I guess is the right word to use them. Nightshades and Shadowblades just don't have enough spec points unless you're like rank 11 or 12. Let me read through the chat real fast. Yeah. And I'm going to mention it again. I mentioned it in the last two podcasts. Reduced realm point timer needs to be, in my opinion, adjusted to maybe 2.5 minutes. Having it 5 minutes of a person being worth reduced realm points right now, and the way the game plays out is crazy. Considering I can port, let's look at the port situation right now. Okay, mids have port to all the Agramon towers, and they have port to Eris. So I die as a Midgard. I'm a little Kobold Savage. I die. I could be in Albion within 2 minutes, essentially, if I run from Agra Tower, even if they don't have air support. even with a new boat speed, I can be, if I don't have ports, if I, boat from even the center keep, I can be in another realm before I'm worth full realm points. So I think a change there would be definitely nice. Um, Read some more comments. Hmm. Do you guys have any other suggestions maybe for assassins to kind of bring them up to par? Maybe not make them overpowered, but make them where they should be, equal to most other classes. It's not. Yeah, I'm getting dinged in Yuan chat. People saying my name, so that dings me whenever that happens. So sorry about those dings. It's from IRC. Yeah, the swapping mechanic. That's one reason I like the idea of playing an assassin, and I've played him in the past, but right now there's too much work swapping weapons. Every couple hits, and to be at maximum, I guess, effectiveness on an assassin, you need to swap a lot because poisons are, they're such a big part of your class and what makes you good. And landing trying to land crit strike chains while swapping and stuff and while looking out for which armor piece is debuffed can be, it's a lot. It's clunky. It's like another, it's like bodyguard. You never know when it's gonna happen. It's clunky in a different way, but it's definitely a clunky mechanic and. Yeah, that's and right now assassins have to carry so many weapons as well just to have all their poisons in a fight and to have enough if they get added on. Say they have to fight 2, 3 people in a row, they have to have so many weapons in order to have poisons for each fight. As aliens say, there says maybe swapping the actual poison onto the weapon while they're equipped. I believe is what he's saying. Instead of having swapping them while they're in your bag could be a good idea. Which I think, I mean, you wouldn't have to carry 20, 30 weapons like I did when I was playing Shadowblade. I had I think 25 weapons, I believe. You could carry just whatever weapons you needed to carry, like whatever weapons you like the procs on or whatever, and then just swap in poisons as you need. But still, at that point, you're still having to drag and drop during a fight, which can be really annoying. It limits your movement if you use a mouse to move, which I think a lot of people do nowadays. It's the most effective way to move. But if you're sitting there, drag and dropping, you can't turn and run, and you're limited in your movement. I think it'd be interesting, maybe it's like how archers select their damage type now. They just press a button, and there's a small reuse on it. Probably make the reuse timer a little bit bigger for poisons, just so you can't. I guess it wouldn't really matter, but so instead of actually having to drop something, you could Q-bind it. And if I wanted to apply Life Bane to my next swing, I could hit my Life Bane Q-bind says Q. I could hit Q, and then it essentially applies Life Bane to my weapon, something like that. Of course, with poisons in your bag, I guess if you could make it to where you could just put it on your quick bar. Say like if you're looking at my character right now, I have these they're recharge potions, but if I put that on my bar and then keybind that to Q, and then when I hit Q, it automatically applies. That'd be great. I'd like that. I'd like to get away from having to manually drag and drop, um, you know, weapons or poisons and stuff like that while in a fight. Let me read some more of the chat. Yeah, I agree with aliens. The perf backstab needs to be actually devastating. And like I said earlier, maybe a slight damage increase could be nice. Maybe putting a snare on perforate artery instead of a bleed would be nice, so it'd be easier to land your creeping death. Or maybe even putting a stun. But I kind of like this 7-second stun being on creeping death. It's a pretty big stun, and it may be a little too powered to put just on a anytime, or not anytime, a frontal opening. Maybe make a new perforate artery that's 44 CS instead of, I think, what is that, what's that, rip separation at 44 CS. Maybe at 45 CS, maybe put Perforated Artery 2 and make it a stun and a higher damage. Could be interesting. I think opening should be where assassins really, at least if you're crit strike spec, really do their damage, get their advantage. Reading some of the chat real fast. Just people discussing the I guess assassin poison and stealth lore mechanics, which is good. Like someone says, I guess most assassins don't have stealth lore in their template, which I guess is pretty true. I think on my assassin, I would definitely want Shades of Mist in my template. However, not for the stealth lore, but for the ablative proc. I think fitting Ring of Dances or anything like that into your template is going to be quite difficult. With scouts, if you really wanted to, you can use Cyclops Shield or something like that. That'd be great. But yeah, I think on my Ranger template recently I had Ring of Dances and fit it in pretty easily. I don't know if you can fit that into an assassin template. I haven't tried to template an assassin recently, but yeah, yeah, I agree. Snare on PA would be great. Yeah, Alien's saying assassins need to shine with openers and reactionary styles. I think that's exactly right. Make the hamstring chain devastating, and then make the opening PA backstab chain great. And Pincer it has a debuff on it. Maybe make the absorb debuff on Pincer a little bit better. I don't know. I don't think crit strike should be great as an anytime, like spamming an anytime chain or anything to do all your damage. I don't think that's a good idea, just based on how my idea of assassins are. Yeah, openings and reactionaries. Scooch says he'd love a huge stealthy revamp to get them into normal groups, and that'd be great, but it would have to be a revamp, as you said. It'd have to be a big change, because right now I don't know if you're ever going to get in their current state, even making changes to them, like small or even mediocrely sized changes to them. I don't know if you're ever going to do enough to get them in a group, and that's just because they have weaknesses and they just don't bring enough utility or damage, coordinated damage, I should say, to groups. It's got to be a big change, I think, in a revamp. I'm glad we got a lot of people talking in chat. Makes this a lot more entertaining for me and easier. It's nice when I can interact with you guys, and you guys can interact with me, give me suggestions and whatnot, and talk about the game. What do you guys think about archers in general at the moment? You look at their escape tools they have, their speed bursts, their rank 5s. All the rank 5s now give them, essentially make them charge. They can't be CC'd and gives them a pretty big speed boost. And Rangers, it stuns the target for 5 seconds. Doesn't matter if they're stun immune, and they can't purge the stun, which I don't like. I think you should be able to purge that stun from the Ranger rank 5. The Hunter rank 5 is a P-based snare, and then the Scout rank 5 is a single target root. It's a short duration root, but it's range. I think it's like 1,000 range, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1,500. That's one of their escape tools. Their speed burst from their archery line is a great escape tool. Phase shift in combination with speed burst makes them have unbreakable speed unless they're dotted. Zephyr. And what do you guys think about archers in their current state with their getaway tools and their damage? You get crit shot by a ranger, hunter, a scout, whatever, for 700. I guess on your assassins probably get crit shot normally for 700 if you do get crit shot, and then P-base shot for 350 to 400. Do you guys think that damage is where it needs to be? Do you think their getaway tools are where they need to be? Their survivability, their melee DPS? Because right now I think rangers are pretty solid, especially with the fumble weapons, the weapon skill buff and the evasion buffs. They can they can tank down a lot of assassins, a lot of normal tanks pretty well, and then they have their archery, which is great damage in my opinion. What do you guys think about that? Uh, Cabotine is saying, or Tanya Mortem, sorry, is saying if you go 50 crit strike with plus 11 in the template, the damage is ridiculously inconsistent. I haven't tested it, so I don't know, but I'll just discuss what he's saying. He's saying just it's all over the place. It's almost like you have so much variance with your swings. Um, and the thing with the called shots is, if I'm not mistaken, the opening to the called shots is a really low damage style, and so it almost doesn't. You're hitting, you know, using a growth rate, zero growth rate style essentially for your opening style, and then you hit them with a high growth rate style. Secondly, is it better just to average, use a one style chain or one style style, I guess, that has a pretty mediocrely high growth rate, and just is it better overall on average to just spam the style with a growth rate in the middle, especially if you may get blocked, parried, evaded, not in view on your big damage style, and then it makes you using the lower damage style kind of worthless. Is it even, are you using called shots even if you are high crit strike? Is that even the way to go? They just don't seem like they're good enough to warrant people specking for them and using them. Yeah, if you go 50 crit strike on Shadowblade, you have to lose pretty much all your left axe, which kind of kills the class. And you don't have enough spec points, even at high realm rank, to get the called shots and high left axe to raise your left axe damage. I think the called shots were put too high in the crit strike line for anyone but an infiltrator to get them, and I don't think they're particularly that great from what I've heard. I haven't played one, so I can't say from my personal experience, but from anyone I've ever talked to that's used the called shots, they're very lackluster. Aliens is saying that his Incapacitate, which is the first style in the called shot chain, has hit harder than his called shot several times, which, that's completely, it should be backwards, obviously, because the called shot's the high growth rate, and the style it's actually hitting off the debuff from your, chains and whatnot. It just seems like it's kind of clunky and inconsistent, because hadn't played an assassin since the changes, so I can't really comment on it myself, but just from feedback from people that play stealthers regularly, it's an issue. And I do think the crit strike's an issue. Most of the time, I think most Shadowblades go high left axe. I know I did on mine after a while. I tried to play, this was old crit strike when I played my Shadowblade, I tried to play with decently high crit strike, and it just wasn't as good as going high left axe. Same with the Nightshade. I think most Nightshades go the majority of their points into Celtic Duel, and Infiltrators have an advantage because they can kind of spread their points around more because they have more points. I still think dual wield styles are great. I don't think a lot of people use CS styles over the dual wield styles. So yeah, as Alien says, they're only good on imps because that's the only way you can achieve them is having that many spec points. They don't work on Nightshades or Shadowblades, in my opinion. You can't have a good spec and get called shots. You just don't have enough points. Aileen said if an archer is going to hit that hard with the bow, they should not be able to do just as good in melee. And I agree. I played a little bit of Ranger recently, and I'm 50 bow my Ranger, and I have I think like 35 or so Celtic Duel for the Frozen Comet, sorry, and I get an evade stun, a side stun, everything like that. And my Pierce is a little low, but it's not too big of a deal. And I can melee down a lot of assassins, just straight melee. Maybe get one shot off and then just kill them the rest of the way with melee. I can melee down, a lot of tanks and stuff. I think maybe addressing, you know, if they want to be good in melee, they shouldn't be able to go 50 bow. Um, Scouts have great defense and whatnot with shield. If at high rank you get like master blocking 7, stuff like that, you're tanking all day on the scout. Hunters, their pets great. The hunter spec I was looking at was like 32 beastcraft, gives you a nice pet. You still go 39 spear for the back stun, and then you get high bow. Not 50 bow, I don't think, but you still get enough to hit pretty hard. Um, yeah, it's back in the day, I used to play Melee Ranger a long time ago, and if you wanted to do really well in melee, you didn't spec any bow, because you needed to have your. That was back when pathfinding was an actual spec line, and you couldn't get both. I don't think realistically. And that was back when they had physical defense and everything, and it was just a totally different scenario. But I think maybe the damage from bows should be looked at. It just seems, I don't know, pretty high to me whenever I'm playing against them. And also the mechanic from stealth. When I'm doing it with my friend, we could be running around and I'll hear him get shot. I'll hear him get shot 2 or 3 times from the same archer, and I'll be looking right where that archer is. And it won't appear until, about 5 seconds after he's actually shot. My friend can see him, he's getting shot by him, he can see him, but as the person trying to help him out, maybe interrupt for him, I can't see him. It's kind of a glitchy mechanic. It's a little clunky as well. I'm not a big fan of that, especially since archers do, they shoot you for 700 with their crit strike without a crit, and then they sit there and point blank you for, close to 400. It's a lot of damage. It's fast, too. Let's see. You guys have any more questions or anything? Anything you want me to discuss? I see we're still talking about stealthers and whatnot in the chat. Kuch says he thinks it's kind of silly that you can't re-stealth when there's an enemy near, or you're too close to an enemy. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I believe it works the way if you're near a stealther, the radius that you can't stealth is even bigger than if you're just standing near like a cleric or something. The way I look at it is, if you're that close to an enemy stealther and you stealth, they may be able to see you anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It just kind of potentially gets you killed. Which, I don't know, maybe a good thing or a bad thing. He wants to discuss legendary weapons. That's a broad discussion. Right now, I think legendary weapons are actually pretty good. You see a lot of assassins, at least, dual wielding them. I use one on my Reaver a lot. Of course, I'm a hybrid. I use procs as a lot of my damage, so being able to debuff from my procs is good. On my Mauler, I use a legendary weapon in my offhand all the time, a matter legendary weapon, and when it procs, I'll swap to a double legendary weapon. I don't really use them on any other tanks, only hybrids, I guess. I could see them being used, I think dual wielding legendaries would be really cool because, it procs and you debuff for both your weapons, and also it has the secondary proc in a solo small man sense, the ablative, which is, let me get the exact value of the ablative. I think it's like 100 or, yeah, 150 ablative. Ablatives are great, especially when you're dual wielding something that, procs a DD, a debuff to your damage you're swinging with, and gives you an ablative. I think it's pretty solid. Physical legendary weapons. So a physical legendary weapon would essentially, I guess, be the same thing as what you're saying. Just have the, yeah. I mean, right now there are, like Pixelayer weapons have the percent slash debuff. If you're using a slash one-hander weapon. It's, I guess, kind of close to a legendary weapon. Of course, you can't SC it or anything, but if you're looking at debuffing for your own damage, there are weapons out there like that. Yeah, Kuj, I think it depends on what class you're near. I know if you're saying like really close to a cleric you can't stealth, but I think from what I've seen, when I'm closer to a stealther, it's harder for me to stealth when I've been playing my ranger per se. But when I'm closer to like maybe a scald or something, I can stealth with him being a lot closer than I can. I can't even see the stealther sometimes. I guess that may be an issue. I can't see him, but um, correct me if I'm wrong. Stealthers that play more than I do, but I do think you can't stealth closer to a stealther than you can invisible. If that makes sense. Yeah, the people that use double legendary weapons, they do have trouble versus heavy tanks, but that's when you gotta have a couple physical weapons in your bag, I think. Um, like you says, physical weapons. I mean, Pixelayer's debuff for your damage type. Champion weapons, I believe. The old champion weapons, they debuff for whatever damage type you're using on a lot of them. Okay. Tene says that Leggy should get some little TOA love, maybe some stat buff or stat bonus, stat increase bonuses to them. Yeah, I think most weapons you find nowadays, like say I'm using my CL15 weapon on my Reaver, which I am. I use that primarily, and then I'll swap once it procs. But it's harder to make a weaponless if you're kind of making a semi-weaponless template. A lot of these bonuses are important, like my magic damage, melee combat speed. All that's important. My dex and strength cap's important, and you look at the legendary weapon, and you get your melee damage and then whatever you see on it, but you're missing out a lot, which a lot of common weapons have stat caps and decent TOA bonuses on it. Luckily for me, my Reaver template doesn't really use a lot of these. It's pretty weaponless, so it works out. But yeah, if you're making like group templates, a lot of group templates aren't weaponless. Maybe they should be, but a lot aren't. Yeah, it could help make people want to use more legendary weapons, but I think in groups, legendary weapons become a lot less effective because you're fighting people with red and yellow resist from shamans, healers, clerics, druids, wardens, friars, clerics. They have the resist buffs, which put some resist close to 50%. And you don't want to go into a fight, swinging on that. You'd rather be swinging on 25% crush or 25% slash. But in a small man solo sense, where people probably won't have resist buffs, Legis are a lot better in my opinion, at least. But yeah, I wouldn't mind 4-slot Legis for SC. I guess the reason they're not is they looked at the free two-way. They already gave you the 3% melee damage, which I don't think it's a big deal. I don't see the issue with making them 4-slot, or even putting like you look at the crafted weapons, like the little sigil crafted weapons or whatever. You can get 5 strength cap on those. Maybe incorporate that into legend weapons. I don't think that would be too big of a deal, in my opinion, at least. Okay, yeah, I'll go out to aggro right now. watch the, there's a mini AV8 draft. I think I'm actually going to log on my Bard and do it because Bard is greater than Reaver for running around. So give me 1 second. Bard's booting up. And I'll watch for a little bit, but I need to go pretty soon for dinner. But I've stayed because there's good discussion in chat, and I'd like to continue it if possible. They should also make porters and houses appear faster. That'd be nice. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about tonight. Just haven't remembered to talk about. One thing I think would be really cool is if you were to put, say, an item like Egg of Youth. Let's use my AoE res. If I were to put that on a quick bar, say put it right there, and I were to use it, it would gray out when it was down. You kind of keep track, just like a realm ability. You use Mock, it's grayed out obviously, and it shows you how long it is until it's up. Maybe do a similar thing with items. That'd be great, I think. Really helpful. And also make items usable in combat. Like when I'm casting a song, I can't cast Egg of Youth. And most charges or most item uses are like that outside of like champion weapon, power charges, champion weapon endurance charges, and battler. Most of them require you to not be casting or not be meleeing or something. And I think that'd be really nice if you could just, make it usable in combat. So there's a bit of a fight over here. Looks like Hibs and mids. It looks like the mids are losing. Yeah, thanks for joining me, Tinny. Jabrel, it's good seeing you. Good chat and some good suggestions and stuff from you, I think. Hope you join me next week. Oh yes, the running out of the heal pots at an awkward moment, an illegal object or whatever. That's terrible. Yeah, I hate that. It gets me not killed sometimes because but it may get me killed. Can't use a heal pot, but it definitely upsets me when I think I have a heal pot bound. And I bind them too. They're just on my second page, and then I'll put them up there. So it's harder for me to keep track of when they're key bound. But yeah, doing away with that maybe would be nice. Maybe how the XP scrolls are. Like the bounty XP scrolls, a lot of people use to get CL15. You can put the last scroll charge, I guess, on your bar, and it'll use from the top down. I think that'd be a great way to use potions. Like you see in my bag right now, I have all these power potions. If I click on the bottom one right here, and then I take it and I put it on my bar, it'll use all the power potions, any strong drought of power I have from the top up. It'll use all the charges from the first one down. So that way, if I run out, it's because I have literally no more power potions in my bag. If I use the bottom one, one as my keybind, I think that'd be an interesting fix for that. It's something that can be done because it's obviously in the game already with BP scrolls. So I would very much like that. And I believe that's how it works for Doppel shards, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, looks like we have another fight over here. Looks like more Hibs and mids, possibly. I think this is Kuji's group, the mids. He's the guy that's screwed right now. Unfortunate for him. But let's see. All right. Thanks for joining me, Carol. Talk to you tomorrow. Oh, just the XP scrolls. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was the Doppel stuff or not. After this fight, I may go ahead and head to bed, or not head to bed, head to get some food as well. Because I am quite starving. Looks like the Hibs had pretty decent CC for a little bit, but the bard just got caught and slain. So now they lost a lot of pressure, and the mids can probably just push over him pretty easily, I'd imagine. I don't even know what's going on. Doesn't seem like there's that many hibs now. May have missed some deaths. I think it did. I was talking. Anyone have any thing they'd like to say or have me talk about before I end the podcast? Alright, well, I'm going to get back. Congratulations to QG's team for winning the fight. Well done. And I'm going to end the podcast, I believe. But if you missed the first part of the podcast or would like to rewatch it or anything, I believe Carol's going to put it on YouTube probably tomorrow or the next day. It'll also be in the past broadcasts of the official Dayox Twitch. Just keep an eye out there. Go to the Dayox channel on YouTube. All the past podcasts are also on YouTube. We've had 2 so far. This is our 3rd. So if you'd like to check out anything, hop on over to YouTube or look at the past broadcast here. I don't know how long they save the past broadcast on Twitch, but I think they'll be on YouTube for pretty much until YouTube dies or until my interview interview the winners. I would end, but I need to go eat, and maybe next time end. We'll see. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate everyone coming into the Twitch chat and talking with me, giving me talking points, putting forth their own suggestions, everything like that. It's been a fun time for me. Put this big while I sign out. It's been a great time for me. Thanks for joining, and hope you guys come back next Sunday. I believe we'll probably do it next Sunday around 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And maybe we'll have some more nights then to create a little more discussion. But, I enjoyed it, just talking with you guys. But yeah, I will see you guys later. Y'all have a good night, and have a good week.